Enjoy. Welcome to the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast with JoJo from Jerz. My guest today is Trae Crowder, who's an unbelievably funny comedian that I discovered. I'm sure I was not the only one to discover him on Twitter. And some of his car rants just absolutely crack me up. So welcome, Trae.
Hey, how's it going? Glad to be
Yeah,
here.
I'm so glad to talk with you. I have watched your car rant videos. I don't know. The first one was probably, how long have you been doing those?
I've been doing those since 2016. Yeah. Do you you may have seen every now and then I'll have one that kind of pops off somewhat in terms of, does well or gets around. So you may have seen one of the, I had an ivermectin one during the pandemic that was pretty big, and a couple others. So
Yeah.
but I try to do them pretty consistently. I've been doing stand-up comedy since 2010. And in 2016, I started making those videos, and that elevated things for me.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's crazy. First of all, you don't seem old enough to have been doing, you look very young. I'm sure
Well,
people probably tell you that a lot.
that's very sweet of you to say. You're going to give me the vapors. No, I'm 37. I mean, I started when I started stand up when I was 24, which that's not late, but they're like one of the guys I tour with. He started when he was 16. A lot of guys do. So I've always felt like I kind of got in it sort of late anyway, and then I've been doing it for 13 years. So and I told you before we started, I've got two kids. I had kids early because I'm white trash, I'm Tennessee trash, and that's how we do it. So I was like 25 when my first son was born. And so for all those reasons, I don't feel like a spring chicken,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm, pushing 40 as I am.
And that's not an easy life, right? Like it's not to be a comedian, you have to tour and you got to deal with all
Mm-hmm.
the stuff. And I'm sure it's not like, I couldn't do it. I know I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's both because it's like before when I first started stand up, I worked for the U.S. Department of Energy, and I was a contracting officer. That was my like day job, and it's like an office drone job, but for the federal government. And so like it was a dream come true for me to be able to do comedy professionally. It's like what I'd wanted to do, so that's great, and I'm very lucky. But having a family and stuff, being gone as much as I am, is hard. But even then it's not as bad as it could be because it's not like a band. With a band, they like have to mobilize the whole crew and their roadies and their buses and all this stuff, and they go out on tour for like weeks at a time. But I don't have to do that. I just fly in. It's just me. I just show up. They got a microphone set up. I don't have any gear. I don't have an entourage or nothing like that. So like this weekend, I'm going to Austin, Texas for shows. I'll fly out Friday morning, do show Friday, two shows Saturday, and then I fly back home Sunday morning. So I'm gone for like 2 days. Then I fly out again next Wednesday for a longer run. But I'm saying I'm only ever gone for a couple of days, and then I come back home for a few days, and then I have some weekends off too.
One of the things is sort of like this intersection, I think, where my content and your content meet is you talk a lot about Republicans and Donald Trump and MAGA, et cetera. That's, those are the things that resonated with me in the beginning. And I was just going through your Twitter feed and I had never seen these flags, but you said you showed a picture. There's a flag, a MAGA flag out now, and it's Trump or death.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, yeah.
So let's talk about that. I mean, I talk about I call it a cult of stupids, but Trump or
Right.
death? It's either
Yeah,
Donald
no,
Trump
they're
wins or
really
they die.
really leaning into the whole cult thing. Evidently, it's funny they'll get so mad about, they get mad if you call them like fascist or racist or say they're in a cult, and then they do, try to make transgender people not exist and put Trump or death on their flags, and try to deport every Muslim from the country and things like that. So it's pretty much par for the course for them. But I'm sure they were just getting tired of the flags they had. They love flags. These people love flags. They always got to have a new flag. You know what I mean? It's like having a new flag is very exciting for them. It's like Christmas morning. It's like a brand new flag, when they didn't even think they could come out with new flags, and all of a sudden they've got one. So yeah.
I also think it's hysterical that these are the same people who are like, I can't afford eggs and I can't afford, sorry, I'm doing a Southern accent. I can't afford to, things because it's Biden's inflation. But I would love to know what one of these giant, like house-sized flags runs them. Where they get the money for that?
Yeah. Yeah. Back in my day, it was like, trailer Americans would spend their money, spend the money they didn't have on like stereo systems and stuff. That's what my dad did. That was a much cooler, more rock and roll way to be wasteful with your income. But yeah, no, yeah, big custom printed flags, not cheap, certainly. But it's also like they don't have them custom printed. One of them will have it custom printed, and then they start selling them to the rest of them because everything's a grift with them too. You know what I mean? So like whoever came up with that Trump or death flag, which is like not a hard thing to come up with, but somebody had to come up with it. Whoever came up with that is, probably made a lot of money off of it, I would imagine. And then they also may have then turned around and given that money to Trump for his legal defense or whatnot. That would check out too.
Because he's a billionaire, they have to send him their money. Where I live is like really red. People don't think of New Jersey as having a lot of red parts to it, but it's like very, very red here. And there's a house that has always had some kind of crazy propaganda on its front fence. And the other day I drove by, it's by the Walmart. The other day I drove by and they have a huge, huge sign, and it's Trump's mugshot, and it says Trump's guilty of winning the 2020 election.
Yeah.
And it's massive.
Yeah. Yeah. They were, you knew as soon as the mugshot happened, they were going to co-opt that any way they could. I mean, that's why Trump himself put it on a t-shirt. A very funny, that's what Trump said, never surrender. And it's a picture of him after he had surrendered. It's classic Trump. Very funny. But, yeah, you knew they were going to take that ball and run with it. Treat it like people do rappers and stuff, with mugshots. They love they act like he's like gangster and stuff like that all the time too. It's like nothing about the whole Trump thing makes any sense really. From the very beginning, I was like, I don't understand why this guy is the guy that has become the champion of like working class America or whatever, when he's the most like, elitist, snooty, blue blood, big city bastard on earth.
Right.
But I don't know. He tapped into their whole, the rage they had, ignorance and rage, like and bold ignorance, and all that stuff. He put all that on the table and made it all okay, and they loved him for it, I guess.
Yeah. And there's the huge racism piece to that. Yeah, it's part of the rage. Yeah, hating, being able to openly hate, whoever they want to hate, that they want to blame for whatever's wrong with their lives or anything. He was very good. He is very good at that. And it's crazy to me because they always vote against their own best interests with him, like with the entire Republican Party. I mean, the Republican Party is running on, we want to take away your Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security and lower taxes for rich people, but we hate who you hate. So can you vote for us? Like, I just don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. That's definitely true. I mean, at this point, for a while in 2016 and then in 2017, I was kind of defending that point a little bit just with Trump, because I was like, well, I mean, Trump was the only one. Trump, like, totally, he lied. He made it all up, but he told all these people, like, I'm going to like go to Mexico and get your jobs back and make them pay for it and all this type of stuff. And it's like, that kind of thing was speaking to their economic self-interest, but they just never should have bought it in the first place. But we're way, way, way past all that now. And, yeah, everybody's a temporarily inconvenienced millionaire or whatever they think. That's what everybody says. That's just so hard for me to believe. I mean, maybe that's the case, but it's just so hard for me to believe that these people actually think that they're like gonna be rich enough to get those tax breaks someday. It's like, you're a welder. Nothing wrong with welding, but like, how's that ever gonna happen? But I don't know. Maybe they do. Because I mean, I'm confounded by it too. I don't know why they, like you said, it's because they hate all the same people, I guess, and that's more important than being able for their grandma being able to afford her medicine or something. Right. I don't know.
And now they're rewriting all of the history anyway. I mean, like, I'm from New Jersey. I grew up here. I lived in New York for a long time. And I get very, very triggered when 9/11 comes along and Trump tweets or shares or whatever, says anything about 9/11, because I always remember that he said all those fucking lies. But the one about being there and helping remove the rubble is one that really gets me, like makes my blood boil. And they believe this shit, these lies that he tells. And it's gotten to the point now where his whole entire 4 years was the best we've ever had it in this country. That's like Marge Green's out there talking about how it was $1.57 gas. And it's like, last time it was $1.57 gas, there were, trucks in New York City with body bags in them because nobody was going anywhere because there wasn't any demand for gas. But they've created this whole fiction, It's like not even remotely true.
Yeah. I mean, ever since, early on in his rise, he, sort of propagated the whole fake news thing. And that was, it was off to the races after that. I mean, that was like a brilliant stroke because ever since then, it's like the truth just doesn't matter. And they just lean into that all the time. They just say all these things and get everybody riled up. And it's also effective. And the fact that none of it is factual or accurate or true is completely immaterial to them, which is maddening if you're on the other side, but also like, I mean, I don't know what you do about that. I don't, because like there's a saying, it's like, you can't use, I don't know, you can't use reason to get somebody out of an unreasonable position, or you can't like, rationalize somebody out of believing something that they believe irrationally or something like that. Like you can't, there's nothing really you can do, in my opinion, when these people get down that particular rabbit hole and just believe what they want to believe. And,
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, because I mean, what are you going to do? You can't present them with any facts. I mean, it doesn't matter because it's like stapling Jello. I mean, it's just they don't care what you have to present to them, which brings me to this other question, because we just saw today Kevin McCarthy announced that they would have an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden without a shred of evidence at all.
Yeah, it's weird. They like another thing they do. It's like they're just so committed to and adept at like projection. You know what I mean? Like everything they do, it's like hypocrisy is so deeply interwoven into their like fabric that like everything they do has like, an equal and opposite action you can point to with them doing like with this impeachment thing. Like it's exact, like it feels like they're setting us up because we're going to be like, this is a witch hunt, right? That's what we're going to say because there's no evidence against Biden or whatever. And then they're going to be like, see, you say it when it's Biden or whatnot. And it's like, okay, but the difference is this actually is a witch hunt. Like, whereas with Trump, he did all that shit in front of everybody publicly. You know what I mean? Like it's not the same, but they do that kind of thing all the time. They set up these like false equivalencies or whatever. And they just, rant and rave about one thing, then turn around and do it themselves. And there's just no consistency, no accountability, no reasonability. It's, it's rough place to be.
It's like trying to have a conversation with someone who only ever says, I know you are, but what am I? Like it's you're never going to get past that. But I will say that there's two things that I wanted to ask you about that I feel like maybe kind of signs of hopefulness. I don't know if that's even a word anymore. So the first one is, you did another car rent that was amazing about Ohio, about their special election in August. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I sent it to everybody that I work with, because I work with a lot of people in Ohio. And it was like, you just kind of boiled it down. That's what you're really good at, to like, the Ohio Republicans were like, hey, Ohio, do you want your vote to count for shit? And it turns out that then Ohioans were like, actually, I vote to have my vote count for shit. And that's like, that's the simplest distillation of that whole thing that makes the most sense, because it's exactly what happened. That's exactly what they were trying to do. And I wonder if you think that is sort of indicative of a broader theme in this country, and something hopeful about maybe the democracy being able to sustain.
I mean, yeah, I'd like to think so. Like, I think that, we've known for a long time that when more people vote, Republicans lose. That's why they try to like suppress the vote and that type of thing, which what that means is like, they are not popular. Most people do not agree with them or their policies or any of that shit. So most of us are sane and, are stand in opposition to them and whatnot. And it seems to be trending further and further in that direction, which makes all the sense in the world to me, because they've spent so much time alienating every single demographic of people except for one. And it's like, I don't see how that's supposed to be a winning strategy in a ostensible democracy. But still, it's pushing further and further in that direction, which is great. But they're still, openly trying these tactics like what they did in Ohio to make it, to change the rules enough to like, cheat basically, or shift the game in their favor to where it won't matter if the people want them in those positions. Like that's the game they're trying to play, which, is fascist and everything. So, I mean, it's in terms of the American people. Yeah, I am generally optimistic and hopeful. And I think it will continue in that. I don't think we as a people are backsliding in that direction, but I still do worry because of like the powers that be and what they're trying to like accomplish. And you can't like just rest easy and just assume that they couldn't pull that off to some degree, you know? I mean, they trade, like January 6th and everything. Like, if they can steal an election, they will. Like, there's nothing they won't stoop to, no tactic too dirty or anything. So I can't be overly optimistic. But in terms of the people, I am, generally optimistic about the direction we're going.
That's an interesting distinction, but and it is worrisome because they're getting very creative about finding new ways to cheat. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like we're seeing what they're doing in Ohio with the ballot measure and trying to change the threshold to 60%. And in Wisconsin, they're thinking about impeaching a Supreme Court justice who was just elected, very popularly elected, who hasn't even heard a case yet. And North Carolina is all sorts of fucked up. But back to this idea of the people. You're from Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
Obviously. So what part of Tennessee are you from? Because my kid's paternal grandmother is from Greenville.
I'm from Clay County, which is very, very, very rural. So if my hand is the state of Tennessee, what am I doing here? If that's Knoxville and that's Nashville, I'm from right here, right in the middle of the two, up on the Kentucky line. No traffic lights, no McDonald's. Graduated high school with 60 kids, which was the biggest class we'd ever had. It's usually more like 30 or 40. I mean, it's like the absolute middle of nowhere. It's where I grew up. Then I moved to Knoxville for a job, and that's where I started stand up at. So I lived in Knoxville for a few years before I moved to LA in 2017.
I don't know where Greenville is on your hand.
I don't either, actually. Like, there's a lot of Greenville. I feel like every state has a Greenville, and I don't know Greenville, Tennessee, which makes me think it must be maybe in the western part, because I don't know. I'm less familiar with West Tennessee. I grew up in Middle Tennessee, lived in East Tennessee, never lived in West Tennessee, so maybe it's over that way somewhere, because I don't know it.
Wherever it was, she didn't have plumbing or electricity until she was in high school, and I saw that house and it made a lot of sense. But on the subject of Tennessee and the people, right, and this maybe hopeful sort of perspective on what's really going on with the American people, Tennessee seems like it's going through some shit. Like after the Covenant shooting, there was a shift, sort of, in terms of gun restrictions, reasonable gun restrictions, a little bit.
Listen. I don't know that. I just said I'm optimistic in terms of the people. Maybe it's because it's just in my nature as a Tennessean, because I feel, even like as a football fan of Tennessee football, I feel the same way. I just can't be generally optimistic because, like, I mean, we've really been on our bullshit. Like with Tennessee, it's like Texas and Florida are consistently having a crazy off the past few years. You know what I mean? They're just like vying for the belt of the craziest, shittiest state or whatever. But every now and then Tennessee like slides in like, hey, we're banning drag queens. We're crazy assholes too, or whatever. Like, it's like Tennessee's got little brother syndrome with the other shitty states. And we got Marsha Blackburn and Bill Lee and Haggerty and Ogles and all these. I mean, we got some truly awful people, like at like top shelf pieces of shit. And it's not good. Whereas, like, I used to, like, I remember Tennessee was always a red state, but like we'd have like Phil Bredesen used to be the governor. He was a Democrat. That was like when I was in high school and college. We had a Democratic governor. Even the Republican governor we had, even as recently as like 2015, the Obama administration, the Republican governor we had made community college free for every Tennessean and all this stuff. He was like an old school, like, fiscally conservative, but not a lunatic Republican. Like, it used to be like that.
Yeah.
And we just have gone fully off the deep end in terms of the crazy, MAGA shit. And I really, really, really do not like it. But what you're talking about with the Tennessee 3 and the gun violence and all that, the footage I see and everybody lining up and the protesters, all that stuff, that is very heartening to me as a Tennessean. I like to see that. It gives me some hope, but I still think that, like, in terms of just sheer numbers, like, I think Tennessee is going to remain a ruby red state, and they'll probably continue to have their way. Maybe in that one particular fight with gun violence, because you've got people in Nashville, there's like white suburban moms who sent their kids to a Christian school in the South, right? Are at the state house protesting, saying this is bullshit. We need to do something about the gun. And so, like, there might be some movement on that front, but overall, I still think we got a long way to go in Tennessee. It pains me to say, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, those moms, they are, if anybody is going to get that legislature to move at all on anything
Right.
is going to be those covenant school moms, because that's their bread and butter. And they don't want to lose them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm also hopeful. I'm not naive, but I'm hopeful that Marsha Blackburn can be unseated by Gloria Johnson. I would love.
Yeah, Gloria, that's my homegirl. She's in Knoxville, and I've known Gloria, mostly through Twitter and stuff, but also know, she's come on my podcast and shit like that before. Known her for years. Gloria's always been a real one, and I'm definitely rooting for her. I'm probably gonna, at some point in the near future, I'm gonna make one of my videos about, just basically trashing Marsha Blackburn and then saying Gloria Johnson's awesome, basically at the end of it. Because that'll really move the needle. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Gloria's paid her dues. Like, she's put the time and the work in, and she's been a factor in Tennessee for long enough that, like, and she's become the face of this whole thing that, like, maybe there might be a shot. But like, I didn't think it was a back-breaking moment for me. I think it was the 2018 midterms, I think is when it was. When Phil Bredesen, when he lost to Marsha Blackburn in the first place, and he lost by a lot too. And that was a real, oh shit moment for me. Cause like I said, he had been a mayor of Nashville and then the governor, and he was like well-liked. He was like popular. And, I just didn't see that coming. And I was like, oh man, this is not good. And, so, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, she's
Cannot stand her though.
Oh God, she's, to your point about Texas and Florida always on trying to out crazy each other. I feel like the Republican senators, all of them, but the senators do that too. And it's like, I'm the worst senator competition, where like Ted Cruz kind of neck and neck with, take your pick, Holly, right, whoever. But I feel like Marsha makes sure that she's always in the mix for that competition. She's always there.
For sure.
Consistently awful in that way, and horrible and hateful. And she's gotten even more, I feel, beholden to Trump recently than she ever was before. And I know she was bad before, but it's really bad since these indictments. And it's just, she needs to go. I mean, I would love to see it. I really hope I will be waiting for your video too. Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about Kevin McCarthy a little bit, and before we get to the last little round here, what are your thoughts on Kevin McCarthy and this whole, like, his speakership, how that came to be? What kind of, does he have any actual power? Is he just Marge Green's bitch? Like, what? Yeah.
Seems like it. I don't know. I mean, he's totally spineless. I feel like I guess the title meant so much to him. Just having the title of being the Speaker of the House was like important enough to him to just like willingly neuter himself completely in terms of the actual power it's supposed to provide. Because now he's just a puppet for the crazy caucus and everything, evidently. And so, I mean, I kind of want to point and laugh at him because that's funny to me, and I don't like Kevin McCarthy. So, I'm kind of got some schadenfreude over his predicament, but it still sucks for all of us because, we all have to deal with the bullshit he does at the behest of the craziest people in Congress, because of that whole dynamic. So, not great.
It's true. And I feel like he moved his shit in before he was even actually confirmed as the speaker, and he was like, I don't want to move my shit out. And I've seen that speaker suite. It is nice. I will say that. But like, it's not nice enough to be like, I will give myself, they can have one vote. Just one person can kick me out. That's fine. I'll give all my power to this chick I absolutely hate. And I will bow down to this dude with, a freaking 5-head that I absolutely hate. I'll do whatever it takes so that I can just keep my shit in that office. Like,
right.
And it is.
Yeah, it defeats the whole purpose of even having that position, in my opinion. But like, again, I guess just the position itself was enough for him. He could just forevermore, he can say, I was the Speaker of the House or whatever, and maybe that's all he cares about. But like, anyone who knows anything about it is going to be like, yeah, and you were the, the most cowardly Speaker of the House we've ever had. But long as the speaker part's in there, I guess that's all he cares about.
I guess it's, and it is, this whole thing's going to be even worse. We're going to be dealing with all of that, and maybe a government shutdown on top of it. It's going to be not a lot of fun, but a lot of circus, which is what we probably expected when, these people were put in office, and they have the slimmest majority in the House. It just kills me. They're like, we're going to prove that Biden weaponized the federal government
Right.
by weaponizing
Weaponizing the federal government. Yeah. Right. That's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying earlier. That's like all they do is like just bald faced hypocrisy at every turn. Like they're proud of it almost, except they completely lack any self awareness and seem genuinely oblivious to the fact that they're doing it, which is just such a crazy combination to have to deal with. And it's like, this is the other half of the political spectrum in this country, and they wield a lot of power, and it just makes you want to pull your hair out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh no, I definitely know what you mean. So on that note, we are gonna wrap up with what I call my totally random question round.
Yeah.
So there's 3 questions at the end, totally random. Answer, obviously, however you choose. So 1, if you were arrested without explanation, what would your friends and family think you had done?
Let me see. If it was out here in California, probably gotten into some kind of altercation where I was meaning well, but they thought I was a crazy redneck, and it led to like an actual, maybe not a fist fight, but like, a heated misunderstanding. Because that happens. I have this thing where like I like try to help, but because of my voice and maybe also my accent and just my mannerisms, people think that I'm being like combative or whatever. It happens all the time. Like I've had it happen in like a Starbucks or like trying to get onto the Disney lot, and I'm trying, like, he's like making the phone call and I'm over here like, listen, I have other information that you need that would maybe, and he's like, sir, please. So it would probably be something like that. They would think that was mostly innocent, but through my own ineptitude had ended up in these, perilous circumstances.
I love that. That actually is the most interesting sort of like, I don't know if you know Blair Erskine, but like Blair,
yeah, I do.
So right, she moved out from Georgia to California. That move went from from the deep South to the LA scene. It's just like that. It's just those are worlds that are so different. I'm sure that the adjustment is not easy.
Well, the other thing that's funny about it, the other thing that happens is if they hear my accent and they get like excited or happy, if they're like, "Where are you from?" I'm Tennessee, and they're like, "Oh, I love Tennessee. I want to." Then that means they are like a California conservative, usually, like, and some conservative shit is coming. Like if they like Tennessee or want to move to Tennessee and they live in California, they're probably like, one of the minority of right wingers out here, is what I'm saying. So if I'm in that's indicative of the fact of, where they are politically, if they're like a fan of Tennessee, because most of like the California liberals are like Tennessee,
Right.
But if they're like, fuck, I'm trying to move to Tennessee, I'm like, yeah, bet you are, buddy. Please do not continue, sharing your opinions with me. But they do.
Yeah. They built their little house in what, Pigeonhole? Is it Pigeonhole?
Pigeon Forge.
Pigeon Forge. Sorry, I got my holes and forges wrong. Yeah.
That's the home of Dolly Parton, though, by the way, who's, of course, unassailable and a national treasure.
She is a national treasure. Absolutely, 100%. But I've heard that's kind of a Trump stronghold, too. Is that true?
Yeah. East Tennessee, up in the mountains, that's, hillbilly shit. Like, outside of, like, these cities, Knoxville's blue, Nashville's blue, Memphis is blue, Chattanooga's blue, like just like any other state, the cities are blue, but every other part of Tennessee is red, And so Sevierville and Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg, they're east of Knoxville into the mountains. So yeah, it's pretty red up there. Super Jesus-y, but a fun time. They also got a bunch of like lumberjack games and zip lines and shit. So
Dollywood.
It's not all bad. And Dollywood. Yeah. Used to have season passes to Dollywood when I lived in Knoxville.
My kids have been there actually. Okay. Question 2. Oh, this is a good one. What is your policy on food that drops on the floor?
Oh, I ate it. Next question.
There's no. So
no, I'm a pig. I'm a human garbage disposal. I have no. Look, if I just if I walked into a room and there's a donut sitting on the floor and I don't have any information, it depends on what kind of donut it is. You know what I mean? I'm at least going to investigate it. If it's like the kind that I really like and I don't see any hairs on it or whatever, yeah, I'll still do it, But like, if I drop something on the floor, I just pick it right back up and I'm totally fine. Don't bother me at all. My wife gets mad about that and says I shouldn't do it because I'll do that with like a chicken nugget that's for one of our sons or something, And she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "They're gonna be fine." Like, look, people used to say,
"Might actually be fine."
Yeah,
There's some more shit in that thing.
Yeah, right. Yes, but people, said, God made dirt, dirt won't hurt. That's what I always heard growing up. I don't believe in God, but like, think that that's fine. Strengthens your immune system. It's not a problem.
My daughter is a cautionary tale in eating shit off the floor because she had Coxsackie like 3 times when she was little. And that was the worst, fucking most alien shit I've ever seen in my life, like toenails and fingernails falling off. And it was because she had
my God.
She was, I'm not even, she would eat like, she would challenge me by licking the garbage can in a public place just to piss me off. And then like sure enough, she'd get the freaking Coxsackie. So okay. I have a very strict policy about like, yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. I guess I've been lucky.
No Coxsackie. Last question. Oh yeah. Okay, I'm not going to guess. How long would you last in a zombie apocalypse?
No time. None. The day one. I'd be one of the first people gone. Like, there's no way. It's funny you say, was your guess going to be longer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I used to have a bit about that on stage, actually. Like, when COVID was going on, at that time, I was like, I think my accent actually plays better during all this shit because for some reason people think we're good in an apocalypse scenario. Like people think, hear my accent and think like, oh, he'll figure out how to put a chainsaw on a school bus if there's a zombie horde coming or whatever. It's like, I don't know how to do that shit. I don't know how to do any of that shit. I can't farm. I used to be an all right shot, so maybe that's useful, but I'd have to have somebody else's gun. You know what I mean? Yeah, I've thought about that a lot too. I feel like most people, they watch those shows, and I watch those shows too. Not just zombie apocalypse shows, but anything remotely dystopian or whatever, and you picture yourself among this ragtag group of survivors. But 95+% of us would just be dead immediately, just in the very, very beginning of it. And I'm just not. I don't have enough hubris to assume that I would make it through that. I'm not ex-military. I'm not special forces. Like I'm a comedian. What if they happened to build up a post-apocalyptic society around my house and those people needed someone to entertain them at the end of a chain, right? So they won't eat me. Then maybe I would stick around for a while. But other than that, I'm gone.
Just picturing those traveling shows to places where our troops are deployed, but it's you on a chain.
Yeah.
A bunch of zombies who are
exactly.
Make me laugh, Crowder.
Yeah. Yep. That'd be my only chance.
Yeah, or they're like, I'm going to eat your arm. That is the best answer I've ever gotten to any one of these questions. So thank you for that. Well, that does it. Today's episode. Tell me, podcast, touring, where people can find you, where they can see you.
I got a bunch of podcasts. Listeners of this podcast, I have a political podcast you might like called Weekly Skews. We do it live every Tuesday night at 5 p.m. Pacific time, but you can also get it wherever you get your podcasts at, me and Smart Mark Agee. But other than that, basically, you just Trae Crowder, Trae Crowder on all the socials, and TraeCrowder.com will get you everything, Trae Crowder related. You get tickets to come see me on tour. You pre-order my book around here and over yonder, coming out very soon. Or just follow me on socials, watch these videos that we've been talking about. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being on. When are you East Coast? Because I know you're Ohio, not too long. But when are you performing out here?
Well, I've just recently, and I know you're in Jersey. I did a show in Jersey about 6 months ago, but and then I was just in Vermont, Connecticut, upstate New York, but that just happened. I'll be in, I got a weekend in Boston in October. And there's probably something else I'm forgetting. I'm about to do a whole big. You said you got friends in Ohio. I'm about to do a five night, 5-city Ohio, pretty much every city in Ohio over the course of 5 days next week. So
that's awesome. Yeah, my friend's going to that, so she's very excited.
That's right. You told me that. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. She got the tickets before I even told her that you were going to be on the podcast. That they were already going. All right. Thank you so much. This was so fun. You're amazing. I don't think I've ever laughed harder than your zombie apocalypse answer. So thank you for that. And that's it. So have a great day, and everybody else. Thank you for listening or watching the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast with JoJo from Jerz. I'll see you next week. Look, I think we can all agree, if we can't agree on much else, that these are pretty crazy times, and navigating all of that every day can be pretty stressful. In my case, add 2 middle schoolers, and there are just some days where I'm dragging myself across the finish line. And then there are the nights when a glass of wine or 2 fits the de-stress bill. But let's be honest, I'm a busy mom. I can't be waking up feeling like crap, whether that's that second glass of wine I had or eating my daughter's leftover chicken fingers because I didn't want them to go to waste. Either way, enter ZBiotics. Here's how you use it. Step 1, have a ZBiotics. For best results, make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow, wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic, your first drink of the night for a better tomorrow. Engineered by a team of PhD microbiologists, ZBiotics is a probiotic drink that breaks down the byproduct of alcohol, which is what's responsible for those rough mornings after drinking. So go to zbiotics.com/politicalvoices or scan the QR code on the screen right now to get 15% off your first order when you use Political Voices at checkout. Again, go to zbiotics.com/politicalvoices or scan the QR code on the screen right now.